eternal question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready to throw aside any debt?
Yes.
Are you ready to be clean and clear and forgive and release anybody or anything you ever thought did you wrong?
Yes.
Are you ready to stand in the clear knowing of the powerful, creative, spiritual being that you are?
Yes.
Good. It's building as each yes comes. The room's getting a little bit louder. So take a deep breath and we'll do our treatment for freedom together aloud. I speak my word for myself, my center, and all its members and friends. I know love as the only reality. I am created out of love. Love is what I am. I know this love as absolute freedom in every area of my life, the life of my center, and all who call it home. I know our center's mortgages are paid in full, and I claim for all of us financial freedom with all debts paid and cleared. I release any sense of struggle or wrongdoing. I live in an abundant universe where there is more than enough for all. We experience freedom in every moment by always having more than enough money, vibrant health, and loving relationships. We are who we have come here to be. With hearts open wide, we see the world through the eyes of love. We are blessed, we are rich, and we are free. And so it is. And we do this by practicing our points of power. I always pay attention. I always tell the truth and tell it quickly. I always ask for what I want when I want it. I always take total responsibility for my experience. And I always keep my agreements. And so it is.
Thank you, Barbara. Go get me a bottle of water out of Barbara. Don't let anybody hear this. It's back in the cubby hole. Thanks, Kristen. Kristen's doing a great job back there on sound, wouldn't you say? Somehow I bought into the consciousness of that thing that Barbara had. So I have a little congestion this morning, but I'm good. I'm good.
I shared with you.
That's so loving, isn't it? So with things that are going on in my life, I thought this would be a good time for us to go back to basics and really just talk about the essence of what it is that we believe in the science of mind. So that's where we're going today. And the title of it seems to come out this way. What is your mirror? What's in your mirror? Meaning, what is it that's being reflected back to you based on your consciousness? There's a couple of wonderful quotes that really get us started on this, so I'll just go ahead and start with that. Life is the mirror of king and slave. Meaning, and by the way, that's for you, Kristen. So, about Tantra, and to make sure that y'all are watching my slides today. So, got a little nudity going for you. Life is the mirror of king and slave, meaning that the basic mechanism of life, the idea that life is reflective, that our consciousness reflects out into life, or goes out into life and reflects back to us, that's true for all of us. We're not all the same. But the mechanism with which we function as human beings, up here, yes, thank you. The mechanism we use is the same for all of us. Nobody gets out of this. Nobody gets to say, okay, this is what I was thinking, but that's not going to really happen in my life. That's not how it works. It all works the same for all of us. And then we have a Holmes quote that I find really works. Life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. So everything you're thinking is not your private property. Every thought you have is not something separate from life. It's integral to life. It is what life is based on. It is what life is using to create your reality. That's the essence of it. So we use this as a metaphor. It's called a mirror. Right? This is the mirror. What do you do with your mirror? What do you do with what's in your mirror? Do you look into the mirror and go, my goodness, you're good looking? Some of us do, but we can't all be Barbara. We have to create our own consciousness around this idea of a reflective universe. We have to use our own thinking to create our lives. And it works as a mirror. Now, an interesting thing about a mirror is that yes, if you look directly into a mirror, you see a reflection of you. But what you also see is everything that's around you. Now, you may not be paying attention to what's around you. You may be completely caught up in that zit that's coming back. You may be caught up in the fact that you have some kind of a blemish that's starting to reveal itself on your skin, or that one of your eyebrows is bigger than the other. Whatever it is that you want to critique you about, sure, you can be hard on yourself, and you can go through all of that. But there's everything else that's being reflected around you that's in the mirror as well. It was interesting. One thing I always do when I'm preparing a talk, and I love to use the PowerPoint. So I go on to Google and I start Googling things and coming up with images of all kinds of things. And there was one, it was just hysterical. There was a woman that was sitting kind of in repose, and she had a mirror behind her. And in the mirror was the picture of clearly her partner, I would imagine, who was taking the picture of her. And he was flat nude. He didn't have a stick of clothes on him. But she was fully dressed in the picture, and it just was hysterical how you really got to pay attention to life. Because what's in your consciousness will reflect back to you. And if you happen to be holding a camera, that'll get it too. You know, if you think about it, that's the essence of life, is that whatever's going on with you is fully engaged in life. Whatever your thoughts are, whatever your concerns are, whatever your fears are, they're all being reflected into life back to you. They're going from you into life itself as thought. And the thing about the spiritual law is that it turns it into stuff that you can see. Now you can say, well, it's an illusion. Okay, it's an illusion. But you got to live in it. And it's not just you that sees a lot of this stuff. The struggles of your life start at the point of you. Life is the mirror that simply takes those thoughts, those ideas, those beliefs, that consciousness that is you, and reflects it back to you. And that's what you're dealing with every day. Now you go, well, I know that. You know, everybody knows that. That's life, right? Well, okay. And some of us might think that life is really not that good of a reflection, you know? There's these kinds of mirrors that distort things, right? But that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about life as a perfect reflection, as an absolute perfection, as an absolute reflection that is perfect in every way. Now, so if that's so, why don't we observe it and receive it as perfect? Why do we complain about the things that are going on in our lives if they're a perfect reflection of our consciousness? Well, it could be that the thoughts that we're having are not about what we are wanting to create in our lives, what we're seeking to create in our lives. They're about the things that we're concerned about. And when we think about those things become more clear to us in the reflection of life. That doesn't really help. And we all are doing it. You know, we say, oh, I got this figured out. Yeah, no, you don't. If you have it figured out, then everything in your life would be exactly the way you desire it to be. I don't know many people that have that. Pretty much all of us complain about something. Something's not right. So I thought I'd test you on this. A good general test for the consciousness of the people in the room. How's that for a perfect reflection? Oh, good. Nobody walked out. Barbara saw that on my computer here. She said, you're going to show that to everybody? I said, absolutely. Because this is a reflection of American consciousness. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, where's Barney?
Yeah.
There you go. Something for you to reflect on. He's not there. What happens if he's not there? How are you going to be? You're going to feel betrayed? Bewildered? I don't know. What's going to happen? How's this going to work out? But these people are reflections of our collective consciousness. They're the ones that seem to be rising, with a few others that are still in the game, rising to a place of perhaps being the President of the United States. What a concept. What a concept. And you know what? This is your work. These are divine beings of love and light, just like everyone else. So if one of these calls to and the other one doesn't, which is likely, remember, these are the presence of the divine, even in these forms. Can you dig it? Let's look at that for a while. I'm going to share some Holmes words with you. He actually, in a short section of the Science of Mind, speaks to the purpose of our teaching. I want to share that with you. This is on page 448. It's called The Purpose of the Science of Mind. The whole purpose of the science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. The spiritual world is the cause of the material world. We are spiritual beings governed by a mental law. Only that world can appear to us which we mentally perceive. Our experience is the logical outcome of our inner vision. Our horizon is limited by the confines of our own consciousness. Wherever this consciousness lacks a true perspective, its outward expression will lack proper harmony. This is why we are taught to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. What does that mean? This is what it means. You look in the mirror, right? You look in the mirror, and a perfect physical reflection comes back to us, right? But do we see it as perfect? It has to go through all the filters of our thinking, all the critiques, all the judgments, all the ideas, the critiques that it's not right, that it's not full, it's not perfect. But the reflection is perfect. I mean, nobody thinks about that, but the reflection that's coming back, it may be a mirror image, but it is a perfect mirror image of the physicality of our form as we look into the mirror. Anything that seems imperfect is in our perception. Only in our perception. And that's how we deal with life. We see life as imperfect. We see life as not being the way we want it to be. We find fault. We judge. We claim to be the victim. Whatever it is that we do it against a perfect reflection. So the task is, if you don't like what's in the mirror, change what's looking into the mirror. In other words, in life, if you don't like what you're experiencing, you're not going to change it out there. It is unchangeable out there. It is a clear reflection of consciousness. You must go back to the source. You must change your thinking. That is all you can do. So what do I have to do to change my thinking? Stop finding fault. Accept what you see. Know that it's perfect. And from that neutrality, you can change it. But labeling it wrong or bad, labeling it dangerous or horrid, or any of the other words that you could use to critique it, only keep it active in your consciousness. What I have learned to do in my life, the only thing that has ever worked with getting rid of judgment, is believing in the oneness that we teach in the science of mind. Believing with absolute certainty that all there is God. That way, if I'm looking at something that just looks like a mess, looks like a terrible, terrible circumstance in my life, oh, wait a minute. God has got to be there too. That divine presence, that perfection has to be there in this thing that I have such issue with. It has to be there. Find it quick, find it now. Barbara calls it forgive fast. But whatever it takes, find God in that and make peace with it. And that doesn't mean you have to lay down and not like life, but you cannot change life from that attitude of it's wrong. You cannot do it. You must take it to that place of neutrality, of knowing that it is simply the reflection of consciousness that you've given to life. And now you're in charge. Now you can take it wherever you want. That's the work. That's what this comes down to. Because when you can actually say that I no longer am indulging in that activity of judgment in my life, of making anything wrong in my life, that I'm taking responsibility for at the point of me, then the criticism stops. The fault finding stops. The peace shows up. The harmony of life is present. And you hear birds singing, you smell the spring flowers, because that's where your consciousness goes. But when you're caught up in the problem, when I'm caught up in the problem, when anyone's caught up in the problem will continue to manifest back into us. It's lovely when we see here at our center someone who is struggling with something. Something is hard in their lives. Someone is doing them wrong. Something's not working. And they feel victimized and they just are in a rough place. And we say, okay, do your forgiveness work. Forgive everybody you can think of, including yourself, and mean it. And keep saying it over and over. What did Jesus say? 70 times 70? Keep saying it infinitely until it demonstrates in your life. And then they call one day and say, everything's changing. Everything's working out. Everything's wonderful. You got your forgiveness work done. Isn't that wonderful? Good for you. We can all do that because we all function under the same spiritual law. We all function under the same reality that we create our experience. The thing we're experiencing out here, we created from within ourselves. And I'm not meaning my body. I'm meaning that in consciousness, I created 100% my doing. And even though I may not be able to see it all the time, in that reflection that comes back, I created my experience, and you are creating yours. So, we're getting close to Easter, and I think it's appropriate to bring up Yeshua. That's Jesus for any of you that want to go for the Latin spelling. And talk about some things in this book. Actually, before I do that, there is one story out of the Bible about Jesus that I think is really powerful. It's where he's on his way to Jerusalem, and a father brings him an epileptic child, his son. And he asks Jesus to heal him. And what does he say in that moment? Rather than focusing on the son, Jesus looks at the man and says, if you can believe, everything is possible for him who believes. The father said, I do believe. Please help me, the one with little faith. He knows that he doesn't have a lot of faith, but he really wants to believe that his son can be healed. And then there's the great story of the centurion. That's the one that I want to share with you here. It comes out of the 8th chapter of Matthew. Jesus was in Capernaum, and he met a centurion who was a Roman officer, who came to him and asked for help. He said to Jesus, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. And Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. The centurion thought for a moment, and he said, I am a man who understands authority. With many soldiers under me, I tell this one to go, and he goes. I tell that one to come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and then he does it. Jesus said, listen to the man, and said that he was amazed, and truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Go, let it be done just as you believe it is. And the servant was healed in that moment. In both of these little stories, Jesus didn't say, I healed the person, I healed the child, I healed the servant. He never said that. He said to them, because of your faith, your belief. And it wasn't a faith in necessarily in Jesus. It was a faith in the healing power of knowing. It was the faith that something could change because you believed it so. In both cases, the healing occurred immediately. We come in here on Wednesday nights with Rob Wergen, and my experience is so clear to me that we're in a room full of powerful spiritual beings who, under the facilitation of Rob, create a healing in their lives. Where they had cancer, the cancer is gone. Where they couldn't walk, they now can walk. Where they had some very difficult challenge in their lives, suddenly the challenge is gone. We are so powerful. We are so more powerful than we think we are. We have the ability to change our lives at any moment in any way by simply getting that we are the one creating the image that is reflecting back to us from the mirror of life. We are the ones that are creating the conditions of our lives and no one else. Please don't give your power away. Please understand who you are and begin to live that way. And then nothing is beyond your reach because you are the presence of the divine. You are the one that is creating the miracles of your life and no one else can. That's a good thing. Yeah. Remember about the mirror. Everything you see out there is simply a reflection of what's happening here. And when you change it here, it changes there. And your life is perfect, as it always is. I love you very much. Thank you.